Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rodeo Time, the podcast. Very special episode today. I'm going to break down my thoughts on the election. Got a couple of haters that have showed up, and we're going to address that. Some of recent injuries, and then we're going to get some very interesting questions from the audience. You're not going to want to miss a second of this episode of Rodeo Time. And I'd like to thank my sponsors before we get into the episode. Just real quick, use code DALE on ranchfuel.com for 15% off. Check out Rock and Roll Denim. Okay, these Reflex, you're going to want to use them. And then American Hats. Suck it down right there on top of your head where it crunches your ears. Mountain Ops supplements for your recovery needs, your daily energy. We're going to go with Total Feeds, powering Boone for the last 24 years. No, he's only been taking it for about 10. And then last but not least, Can-Am side-by-sides. And we're going to talk about how you can potentially win a Can-Am here in the episode. Now let's hear from Dale. You know how we start these shows. We're going to start off with some questions from the audience for old Uncle Dale. What do you got for me, Cole?
All righty. Our first caller sent in a question, how do you work out all the time and still look small?
Oh, it's like that. Is it like that? We really need to start writing down who the questions are from. That way I can hit them up on Twitter, X. Shout out to Elon. And maybe mean tweet them back. You know what? I don't know why. I've had a lot of injuries. I am hurting in the morning. I've also, every time I go into the gym lately, I think, man, Tim Kennedy would be disappointed in that workout. I think about when Ty went in there with me, Carson went in there with me to Tim Kennedy's down in Austin, and he just annihilated us. We were breathing hard after the warm-up, and I try to work out as hard as his warm-ups are lately. But here lately, it's been in response to numerous injuries. Whatever. Next question from the audience.
Once again, these are completely anonymous.
But I do need to go back. One thing that's helped my recovery has been Mountain Ops. Thank you, Mountain Ops. Use code Kevin for 20% off.
Why don't you come to Utah where the real cowboys are?
You know, I've heard that. There are a few real cowboys there in Utah. You know, there's some somewhere around Milford, I believe. There's a lot of brothers. There's some bull riders out there. But, hey, old son, Texas. Because I live in Texas. That's why I'm not out in Utah. I love you, Utah. I just love Texas more. And we went to Jagger Mooney's birthday party, and there were 35 world champions in the room. Now, some of those individuals had multiple, so JB accounted for 2 of the 35. Tuff Hedeman was there, Jim Sharp, Kai Hamilton. But of all the world titles, we went around and counted Jacobs Crawley. He's bronc riding world title. There were 35 in the room, just right outside of Stephenville. That's just at one little kid's birthday party. Now, pretty notorious little kid. But happy birthday, Jagger.
So 35 world champions and 1 world's greatest, right?
Yeah, let's not discount the fact that that the world's greatest bull rider was in the room.
Right.
Okay?
There's only one of those buckles.
There's only one of those, and I'm wearing it. And it's a much larger buckle than all those world champ buckles. I'll have you know.
All righty, next question. Why do you tie off like a loser?
Whoa, you're coming at me all wrong. You got the wrong tone. Yes, we recently had Mr. Tom Morehouse on the podcast. I believe it was his cousin, was out west, probably in Utah, where they're, are those buckaroos out there in Utah?
Yeah, they're still that type, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of guys out there, they dally and don't even have rubber on their horns. They say they like to, in Tom Morehouse's cousin's words, you guys out west like to dally and watch the smoke rise, or maybe that's what one of them said to his cousin. And he said, well, we like to tie off and watch it fly. So it gets a little wilder sometimes. I will say, though, there's a lot more people dallying in the Brandon pen these days. I tied off for the longest just because I couldn't dally very well. But that's not a good enough excuse for some people, but I don't care.
So is it a pride thing or a skill thing?
No, I like doing both. I also like to get off my horse occasionally while I'm tied off.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how well it would work out at a rodeo watching calf ropers try to dally and get off their horse. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm a rodeo cowboy. I guess you got to have a little bit of tying off in your blood, just a little bit.
I've always put in for the rule change in the calf roping that your time doesn't end till you get back on your horse. I think it'd make it for a good show.
Yeah, maybe.
Next question. What did they cut out from your Yellowstone episode?
Oh, let me tell you the scenes we shot for that. Yeah, there's a whole lot of plot twists in there where Dale Brisby is teaching Jimmy and beating up Rip and dating Beth and good heavens, round and round. Radiator Ranch goes head to head with Yellowstone Ranch, and yeah, me and the Dutton family were best friends. They were not friends, but yeah, they just settled for me eating some chili in the background. That's how that ended.
Do you want to talk about the bucking horse part? They had to get on and everything.
What?
Like in reality though, like when they.
Oh yeah, we did shoot a bucking horse scene. Yep. Yeah, like in the morning, like whenever we were getting on. We shot it in the evening, but it was supposed to be a morning scene, and they're getting on, broncs fresh in the morning, and a couple of them kind of bucked and scattered out across through this production set of, 120 people. It got pretty hairy, kind of wild. I mean, everybody did well. Nobody got hurt. It was a good scene, but then they just didn't end up using it. Yeah, I know I rode mine.
Secret celebrity crush, and what is he like?
Oh, what is he like? Alicia Cuthbert from Girl Next Door in high school. Oh. She also has a small role. It's a medium-sized role in Old School with Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn. She's a high school chick that Luke Wilson dates on accident. But yeah, Alicia Cuthbert, I used to think was just, but now it's kind of the girl, the blonde chick from Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Got a poster of her over here on the wall. She's not bad to look at.
What? You don't know her name?
No, I don't know her name. I can't remember that one.
I can't even remember her name in the movie.
Yeah.
College girl. Number one.
Hey, college kids, we got your friend. Don't worry, people. We're going to talk about the election coming up.
Why did you kill such a small elk this year?
You know what? I'm starting to think that these aren't questions from the audience, Cole.
Completely anonymous?
You have always had crap to talk on my elk. And the reason I killed that elk is he was the very first one that stepped out in front of me. Brad Probst, Bear Mountain Outfitters, he said, if God puts an elk in bow range, that means God is telling you to shoot this elk.
Hey, man, it's your hunt. It's your day.
You're dang right it was.
Yeah.
How many elk did you kill this year? Exactly.
Yep. Nope. Was busy here.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yep. Did you teach Kai Hamilton or did JB?
I'm going to tell you something. Kai Hamilton is a Dale Brisby fan. All right? I can just tell because he answers the phone when I call. JB may have gotten a new phone number, and if he has, someone out there, please send it to me because I've sent him numerous texts that he has yet to respond to.
Do you think Kai takes after JB more or you?
Kai's probably a perfect blend of JB and Dale Brisby. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. With an Australian accent.
I was about to say the accent, he got that on his own.
Yeah. Well, who'd you vote for?
I voted for Donald J. Trump. This is time. It's now time to phone a friend because I want to find out just how this friend feels about the election.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice.
Some friend.
Yeah, that's why y'all need to send me JB's phone number. Because, see, that's a disconnected number, right? That's what happens when...
Yeah.
So how mad are you right now?
Why?
Because your girl lost.
Ooh.
Kamala. You dated for
Oh,
Kamala.
I know it sucked.
Or you voted for Kamala. Were you so mad?
Yeah, please.
I got you on the podcast right now.
You know, it's a shame because the whole state was blue. I thought we had a chance.
Yeah, yeah. You put $10,000. You bet $10,000 on Trump.
Yeah.
How much did that have you winning?
65.
Nice. So you got your 10 back, and then your 65.
Correct. But you don't really count your 10 back. You know, it doesn't count.
Yeah. I was just making sure. Yeah. I don't really understand because I tried to bet that one time.
Let me break this down to you. I'll make it really simple for you, okay?
Okay.
So because we bet on Trump and the Republicans, yes, I get my 10 back plus the 65. Had we bet on the Democrats and Kamala would have won, I would have got half of my 10 back. Then I would have had to have given 30% more to the disabled and the immigrants. And then my winnings would have also been divvied up 30-10 to that also. So I would have actually lost money on winning if the Democratic Party would have won. Yeah.
That's how that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a whole lot of hope. Is there a lot of hope on the BMF ranch this morning now that Trump is the new president?
Well, you know, the part that really makes a difference is that the Senates are also Republican swing now. So the changes that are going to be made there's not going to be as much fuss or complaints and uproar when he's like, hey, pass this bill. They're like, yep, we're with you.
Love it. Well, you're coming back, so I'm going to come out there and do a little rolling with you. Are you coming here this weekend?
Yep. Well, it's dumping snow. We're getting like 3 or 5 feet up in the mountains right now. So I just got home from the lake. I'm loading up a trailer and heading to the mountains to go play.
Okay.
And then I'll probably be back Saturday or Sunday. Then I'll figure it out if I'm gonna jump in the car and head out west.
Okay, that'll work. Yeah,
so it's a tentative plan.
All right. Well, if it works out, great. If not, I'll come up there when I go to the NFR.
Perfect.
Or probably both. So.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, we'll go roll. Get you ready for
10-4. Can't say that date. You gotta edit that.
Okay. We can't say the date. I just thought it was the location. Neither.
Yeah, you can't say neither because no one knows about either one of those. So
sometime
in the spring, we're gonna roll. We're gonna get you ready to compete.
I'm sure I'll be in the return. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Cowboys,
we'll get you ready for that.
You're gonna fight somebody in the future.
All right, later.
Bye.
Oh, sorry. That was live. Cowboy Cerrone, it's good to be his best friend as well as JB Mooney's Kid Rock. We've got a Kid Rock and Dale Brisby collaboration shirt coming out to celebrate Trump's win. And, that's going to be a big day.
You have a lot. You are friends with some of the toughest people on the planet, right? You got Cowboy, Rob O'Neill, Marcus Luttrell, like the list, Tim Kennedy, the list goes on.
Yeah.
What friends do you have that you're the tough friend?
Ooh.
Once again, anonymous from the internet.
Well, me and Cole, I would be the tough friend. Okay. So that's my immediate reaction. Yeah. I love hanging out with Cowboy. When you hang out with Cerrone, you find out what it's like to really have that long hair, don't care attitude. If you're with him in traffic, walking through a crowd, a lot of us, just normal humans would consider around us like, hey, I better not cut this guy off. Like you just kind of think like something could go wrong. I don't know. I think most people probably avoid confrontation for the most part. And it's not that he's seeking out confrontation. It's just a non-issue in his head. Like he would pull across this parking lot and I saw this guy stop and he kind of like had this look on his face and Cowboy just doesn't even acknowledge it. Well, like it means nothing to him that he's not going to purposely try to start something. But if you've been in that many street fights, if you've got that kind of just killer instinct, you think on a different level than just the normal human. Not that I'm normal. I'm very abnormal.
Also, I think long hair don't care is is the wrong way to describe cowboy.
Yeah, it's funny because he's bald and I actually have the long hair. So I have long hair and I do care. He's bald and he doesn't care.
I'm sure there's a lesson there.
There's got to be.
Yeah. So, okay, so if you're my tough friend, when's the last time you had to tough something out?
Well, recently I did break my finger at Cook's Garage. We were picking up, and they called, and they were like, Dale, we want you to pick up. And I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I will. Absolutely. I mean, they've noticed my videos in the arena. They've noticed I went to, down to Corsicana and picked up at that rodeo in San Antonio for Survey during the ranch rodeo. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of getting a little bit be a better pickup man. Okay, yeah, count me in. So, yeah, put me down and going to get paid pickup man wages. And then a couple days before the event, I get the text, hey, Dale, can you promote on here that you're going to be there and that this is going to, and I was like, oh, okay. That's why you wanted Dale Brisby. Yeah, Paul Peterson lives in Post, Texas, right there next to Lubbock. We'll use old Dale here. Anyway.
Well, to help your bruised ego, though, you had to have some pickup man skills for them to even put you in that category.
This is true.
So
this is true.
Right.
Dale Brisby, Taos Muncie. No, it's Muncie. World champion. I think in 07 is when he won the world.
I think so.
07, maybe 8. He was like 19 years old. Went to 14 NFRs, I believe.
He's okay.
It was over 10 NFRs. Regardless, great pickup man also. And then the third man was Cole here on the mic. And second bronc out. Yep, I dallied and had a pretty good halt, I thought. And this horse set back and ripped that rein out from around that saddle horn. And it did take my finger with it. We caught it all on camera. You can watch it on my Rodeo Time vlog. And it snapped that finger. At the time, I didn't know that. I reached down, tried to straighten it out, and I just thought that I was being a pansy, which I still was. And so the rodeo goes on, and come to find out it was broken.
Mm.
So,
but then also you did something to your shoulder while we were out there.
Yeah, I didn't really want to talk about that. I mean, I don't mind talking about it on the podcast, but I wasn't going to tell anybody just because I felt like I was just adding on this stuff, and I was like, all right, now you're really being a pansy. But I feel like it was maybe a rotator cuff. I'm just guessing, just because it's a different area than what I had surgery on. Regardless, it was a rough perf for old DB. Also, Buckethead, because he was just not himself. And I was like, Buckethead, what is going on up here? You're having trouble dragging these broncs out. It's only 12 head, which a lot of guys might swap horses, but guys have picked up 10, 12 head on one horse before. And if your horse is legged up for it, it's not the end of the world. And mine was, except that day. And he was off. So on my way home, I stopped at the notorious and world famous 4-6's ranch. Just called up Taylor Sheridan. I need you to look at my bronc, Buckethead. And he said, yes, sir, right away. So Taylor met me out there and showed me which pen to put him in. And turns out he had EPM. And, yeah, so I'm glad I took him. I'm glad I dropped him off. I don't know if it was the raccoons that came back for vengeance after I killed them in the attic, or maybe the 97 stray cats that my neighbor feeds, or a possum, like what most people, assume that it comes from, and probably does. So somewhere along there. Buckethead's pen is right by a big tank where a lot of wildlife water out of. So there's no telling how it happened. Regardless, we got him fixed up. Thank you, 4-6's vet clinic.
Full recovery.
Full recovery. He's better than he was before now. So we're excited about that.
I thought you did great picking up.
Thank you.
I do think it's something that you're getting better at.
There's a lot of little nuances, little things. Like you got to have a good horse. Everybody thinks like, oh, I got a horse that can pick up, and like, maybe. But it takes a different kind of animal to get in there and bump up next to a bucking horse. A lot of horses don't like it. Like there's like really good ranching horses that might stop and then you get kicked or not get close, and then the cowboy falls in between you and the buck. It's just, you got to have a good, and Buckethead can do it.
How did you know that Buckethead was feeling off?
Whenever we went to drag that, it was like midway through the perf. and this horse wouldn't leave. And so I'm literally trying to drag this bronc out the out gate, and the horse sets back. And granted, it's tough for a ranching horse carrying a human to drag a big stout bucking horse that's putting all his weight and bracing against that bronc rein. It's hard for a horse to drag him out, but Buckethead can do it. He's a big stout horse, and he just couldn't. It was like he was pushing up against a brick wall. And I jokingly turned to all the cowboys that were on the back of the chutes and that could see me. I said, "This is what y'all get for hiring a YouTuber." But deep down, I knew something was up with Buckethead. That's the moment where I was like, "I'm taking you to the vet when we're done with this."
Mm-hmm. And also, Boone,
because EPM effects is kind of neurological.
Right.
That's where you really can tell. They kind of act like they're drunk.
Well, also, Buckethead is not a Boone. Buckethead is a great horse. You can do anything on him, but he doesn't act like Boone. And he was acting like Boone that morning.
Correct. Yeah, Boone is slow, tired, gentle. You know, he'll sit back on a bronc halter. I mean, on a when he's tied up, and he'll occasionally buck, just kick over a Coke can. But he's not your go-to horse if you're gonna pick up in the big pen. But Buckethead usually is.
Well,
They hesitated at testing him, and they were like, "We really think he's fine." I was like, "No, this horse is different. We need to draw blood."
Well, the reason, so to back up, to fast forward, whichever, you are getting better as a pickup man, given that we have had a lot fewer opportunities to practice.
Because we are building a new arena. That's right. Powder River came in, we got 4 bucking chutes. It's 150 feet long, not your 90 that it was. So we're going to be able to do some Dally team roping, which is I'm kind of sad about, whatever. I liked that it was just a rough stock haven. Broncs, bulls, fighting bulls, occasionally bareback. But as much as I want to push back on team roping, it will make you a better overall cowboy. So we're going to have to get some slow steers because it's only 150 feet long, 100 foot wide, but I think it's going to be good.
This does not mean that if you want to be a team roper, Winnebago is the place.
Yeah. That's a good way to get your intern video quickly just swiped away. Yeah, we're not taking Dally team roping intern. Yeah, that's not. If you want to, and I'm not trying to just hate on timed events. I'm just not a timed event guy. So what you would need to do is, if you've never done anything and you want to get to do timed events, I can help you learn how to ride a horse. I can teach you the basics of swinging a rope. But you want to talk about backing in the box, whatever, you don't need to learn that from me. There's plenty of other places. Go be a driver for Shad Mayfield or whoever. Go drive for someone and pick stalls, feed horses, warm up ponies. That's where you need to go.
Yep.
I want the bareback riders, bronc rider. I don't care. I'd take a bareback rider. I just don't know enough about it I could teach you like the day 1, day 2 basic fundamentals, but broncs, bulls, I could maybe help a bullfighter. But there's just not a lot of outs with bullfighting. It's either like a dumpy little like sale barn, or it's tie monster. So like you've either got no action or way too much. Get out of the way. I need to come help. So,
all that being said, also, we're a rough stock haven. Like, we got to give the people what they want, and they want bucking horses and bucking bulls.
Yep.
Team roping is kind of like NASCAR. They're making a left turn.
Yep. There's plenty of other team roping learning opportunities out there. It's like you don't need to go to somebody that can barely teach you how to swing a rope. Go to an actual team roper.
Well, upcoming events, probably the biggest one right now is the NFR.
Well, we just got back from the biggest one, at least for me. I love National Convention. The FFA holds a near and dear place in my heart. My dad was an ag teacher, so I grew up around the corduroy jackets. And for those of you out there that are listening that are under the age of 18, you're still in high school, you need to talk to your ag teacher about the FFA. It's the public school system's best kept secret. Cole Snyder here and myself, we're both state officers.
Yep.
Cole, I was a vice president.
What?
And Cole was a
president.
There you go.
Which, if you follow the election closely, is one step above a vice president.
Actually, way few more steps above than the vice president I was, because in Texas, 10 areas, 10 state officers. It's president, first vice, and then they just call the other 8 vice presidents. Regardless, I wasn't first vice.
One could argue that you were running against a lot more people, though. So it's almost
I mean,
more.
there's 10 of us. There also, back then, it was like there's 10, and at state convention, they're going to vote on who's president, and then, second place would be first vice. They also take into consideration a test that you take about the FFA, which I did poorly on. Like, it's like FFA trivia, FFA quiz type stuff. Like, it's not things, which I should have done better because I was the ag teacher's son, but I did not. Maybe it's because I'm not that good at test taking.
Did you compete in any CDEs?
All of them.
All of them?
CDEs, LDEs. I did all the things. Yeah, I mean, I was showing animals. I was in extemporaneous speaking. I was in ag issues. I was in creed speaking one time. I couldn't tell you the creed now anymore, but yeah, I did all the things.
For the non-affiliated, CDEs are
career development events. LDEs are leadership development events. So your career development events would be like if you're building a trailer in ag mechanics and then you take that to a stock show and compete with it, or if you're showing animals, raising pigs, lambs. I liked commercial steers the most. It's like it's a feedlot set of steers that you don't halter break. To me, that was the most practical. And then your LDEs, leadership development events, is like extemporaneous speaking. So it's a big old jar with a bunch of topics in it. You pull out 3, and then you pick one. They give you 30 minutes to prepare, and then you give a 5-minute speech to a panel of judges. That was my favorite LDE because it was just you had to be it had to be relevant, but essentially, like, can you speak on this topic for 5 minutes? And I got to BS, and I liked doing that kind of stuff. But anyhow, we came from National Convention. There's 50, 60,000 FFA kids all in one spot. They're the best group. They're the best, well-behaved. It's the most well-behaved set of students or attendees for a booth that we go to all year. We also go to California State Convention, Texas, Oklahoma, sometimes Florida. And anyhow, you get along with everybody. Except there was one ag teacher did not like that she said that I encourage students to wear hats in official dress. I've never done that. Also, I signed a whole lot of hats from sponsors like Ariat, and the booth directly across from me probably sold more hats than anyone. You know who they were? National FFA. So I signed a lot of FFA hats that were sold to those kids. So I don't know if, but I like the FFA. If they tell me to stop selling hats, I'll just sell T-shirts. They also said, one lady said that I encourage dangerous behavior. I don't know what that means other than bull riding. But, hey, driving in a car is dangerous. They also have FFA rodeos. I won a lot of scholarships at FFA rodeos.
Also, if somebody reaches out to you to ride bulls, your first instinct is to talk them out.
That's the other thing. I convince people not to.
Yeah.
Hey, it's great. It is entertainment. I enjoy this lifestyle. This is how I was raised. It's in my blood. But most people I can talk out of bull riding. And for those of you out there listening, like, hey, I want a rodeo, I want to ride bulls, I'll give you this advice. If you and I are getting ready for you to ride your first bull, I'm going to tell you, and as I tell everyone, you could die doing this. Or some people might think worse, just from the neck down. So I hate to say that. It's a more morbid moment, but it is 100% real. And I've known people that were in the former category, and I know people that are in the latter category of those two situations. And it's touch and go out there. It's a dangerous sport, just like, for instance, motocross. I've gotten to be friends with Travis Pastrana over the last couple of years, being sponsored by Can-Am, plug. But he's got way more injuries than I could ever dream of, and none of them are from bucking bulls. Also, I've got another friend that I just talked to on the phone, Cowboy Cerrone. He's got a lot of injuries. Actually, his almost lethal one was on a dirt bike.
Yeah.
And he's also ridden bulls and ripped off his. But life to me, like I like adrenaline. That's the way I like. I mean, I don't know. I like to do that kind of stuff. The go-kart the other day, we went mudding for a video. Cowboying can be dangerous. Roping out in the pasture. Yeah, I can't do much about the dangerous lifestyle part other than explain that, hey, especially, also I don't take interns till they're over 21. What else were we going to tell the citizens of Winnebago?
Sorry, I didn't know if you were going to elaborate. To go back to National FFA, so you explained earlier, but National FFA was after you had broken your finger. So
that was tough.
So if anybody was upset that they did not get a handshake.
Well, there was only just one kid. He was kind of upset that I wouldn't shake his hand. I got this cast on my finger. I was like, hey, man, I'm sorry. Yeah. So if I shook hands with the left hand, but some people don't like left hand shakes.
Right.
But regardless, I got a lot of fist bumps. Yeah, that's fine if he didn't. I mean, yeah, I like where your head's at. You wanted to shake the hand of Dale Brisby, which it's an honor that you want to. I think we estimated that I met somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 students because there's students at the booth, the entire booth, which it's 10 hours per day for 3 days. When it's slow, it's 2 people per minute. When it's fast, it's at least 6 people per minute, which ranges anywhere from about 6,000 to over 7,000 students in the course of 3 days. So it's hard to interact with everyone. But if I didn't, and you want to, Snapchat me. My Snapchat is open. Anybody can send me one. It's just at Dale Brisby.
Exciting things you also have coming up. You're giving away your Can-Am.
I am giving away the Can-Am. I'm super excited about that because all you got to do is go to rodeotime.com. You buy a cap, a hoodie, a T-shirt. Those are each entries to win my beloved Can-Am Defender. It's a 2023 4-door. It's got air conditioning, JL audio, 4-wheel drive, automatic windows. Check it out. But yeah, the Can-Am Defender Lone Star Edition. I'm going to ship it to you and $5,000 cash. So every purchase right now between now and December 31st. I think I'm probably the most excited right now because this is day one. It is November 6th and Donald Trump is our next president, 47th president. There's so much hope.
Feels good.
Don't you just feel like you have hope?
I felt great this morning.
Look, and if you guys, if you voted for Kamala Harris, that's fine. But I do feel like a little bit of excitement towards just the economy, get some of these immigrants out. Let's end this dang war over there, or at least not keep sending them $1 billion a week. Did you know that the current administration is sending the Taliban $76 million a week?
Yep. As
exposed by Sean Ryan. So that kind of stuff will end. Why are we sending the Taliban $76 million? We were fighting them like a year ago. And now that we're done fighting them, we're going to send them $76 million? Like, no. Anyways, so stuff like that's going to stop. It's just nonsense. That's nonsense. The economy is already at the Dow Jones has hit an all-time high as of Wednesday morning, November 6th. Bitcoin has hit an all-time high as of Wednesday, November 6th. So I'm not saying like we're about to go into just the rosiest, peachiest of times, but I know that if she had been elected, it wouldn't get better.
It feels nice not to be attacked every day.
Yeah.
You know, I've been called, if you supported Trump, you were called garbage, you were called fascist, you were called a Nazi, and yeah, that just gets old after a while.
I was telling Hall, I don't want a handout. I want to go to work. I love my job. I love making videos. I love going to FFA conventions and national finals in Vegas. Like I love going to that stuff and working, getting up early, getting done late. I love that. I feel like now with Trump as president, I will have more of an opportunity to work. Like I'm not asking you to just send me a check. I don't want a handout. I want an opportunity to work. Because one thing over the years that I've realized is that that's how, and as if some of you out there are super young, or maybe you guys are older, you know this, and you might understand what I'm saying whenever I say God sometimes blesses us with an opportunity. So to use the analogy, he's not going to hand you a fish, but he might provide a fishing pole. for you to go to work. And as you get older, that's what you're going to find yourself hoping for is an opportunity. And as a kid and you know, you're in high school and you just think about like what it might, you know, what's it like to have a lot of money? You kind of, everybody always plays the game of what if I won the lottery? And so you find yourself, all right, I need to win the lottery, which is a handout. And yeah, while that might be neat, how many people are going to do that, number one? But number two, you got to do something. And you're going to find yourself hoping for and wanting an opportunity to work. And it's such a blessing if you are able to enjoy that. Some people are at the point in their life, they don't even care if they enjoy their work. They just want an opportunity to work. And so I get blessed double time. I get an opportunity to work, and I also love my work. So that to me is like the thing I kept thinking about like months ago, like last few weeks leading up to the election. That was like, man, I love what I do every single day. And I just hope I get to continue doing that in an effort to make a living. You know, I don't have to have a guarantee. I mean, it'd be nice. I'm not going to turn away a guarantee, but like that like, hey, you're guaranteed to be successful. But there's a faith side of that as a Christian that comes in handy. But does that make sense?
Absolutely. Isn't it crazy to think about all of the military men we've had on the podcast, like these stand-up guys who just end up being the greatest human beings that we get to meet.
Right.
And to think that one side of this election was vilifying these individuals.
Yeah.
Like of all the people,
right.
Of all the people to dislike, and you're gonna look at you're gonna look at Marcus Luttrell and say this is the bad guy. It's like
yeah. I don't know. The media and Democrats, they just did such a bad job. I mean, their whole campaign was just, what is it? What did they say? Vote blue no matter who kind of attitude. And it was her whole campaign. It was all against Donald Trump. And Elon and Joe Rogan were talking about, they released that podcast on the day of on election day. I think it was yesterday they released it, but essentially they were talking about this one clip where Trump is addressing I think it was women that had been attacked by immigrants. And he said something about like, we're going to protect these women. He said something about women who had been, and essentially they took that clip and they applied it to abortion. And twisted it, and it had nothing to do with, you know, regardless, which I'm pro-life anyway, so I'm pretty excited about I'm most excited, when it comes to that, I'm most excited about the opportunity for J.D. Vance to potentially one day be in office. Like, I don't know how pro-life Trump is. I hope he is. He's more pro-life than Kamala is, I know that, but I think J.D. Vance is a Catholic, so I assume he's pretty, you know, non-murder kind of guy. That's, you know, it's just an assumption.
To take sound bites, to judge people off a 10-second clip with no context is inherently, like, you're always gonna. There's not a single person that you've talked to that you can't take 10 seconds out of their life out of context and judge them harshly for it. You know, I mean,
yeah. Yeah, like what you're saying, you could pick apart anybody if
right.
That's your game plan. You can make anybody look terrible.
When Jesus flipped over all those merchants, if you had just taken those if you had just taken those 10 seconds, you'd be, who is this jerk?
Right.
Flipping over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can pick anybody apart if you do that. So felt good to vote, felt good to win, and won by a landslide.
Yeah.
By a landslide. It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's still not more votes than apparently Joe Biden had back in 2020.
Interesting.
Interesting.
Yep, crazy.
My favorite meme was when it said that Kamala Harris lost so bad that North Carolina is going to send her $750.
One of the best takes to go back on your, one of the best takes I saw, Dan Holloway from Drinking Bros podcast plug, he had said, enjoy this night, take a breath, and then tomorrow start looking for all the opportunities that you were talking about. Start a family, start a business, buy some Daleware, you know, all these things.
There you go.
All these things that maybe a couple of months ago seemed out of reach. And that opportunity is closer now. And
Yeah.
That's nice.
I don't know. A lot of things change whenever there's that much more hope in the room. Everybody, someone's attitude can change everything. Like if you have a bad attitude, any blessing can look like a curse if you have with a bad attitude. And then the opposite is true. If you got a good attitude, you can make a lot of curses look like a blessing, because you make them that. And so now it doesn't mean people aren't going to have problems. It doesn't mean the country's not going to have problems, but there's just this twinkle of, it's crazy. Some people like are surprised how I vote and how I lean.
Really?
Yeah. Like in the text messages, that's where I see it the most. Like whenever, cause I was kind of sending out a reminder text to everybody. Which if you want to text me, if you like the podcast, you can text me the word podcast 940-353-0890. You can also text me the word intern if you'd like to get notifications about the interns opportunities. You can text me YouTube. So all these words are key phrases, but regardless, if you text me and you receive a text, it's me texting you. Occasionally they are mass texts, but if I respond to you, that's me. And so, yeah, I was like telling everybody in my text group, like, hey, y'all don't forget to go vote. And there were some people, and there was one lady yelling at me, Diane. And she was just saying, like, real cowboys vote Kamala. I was like, I don't know. There might be a cowboy that votes Kamala, but
Statistically speaking, there's one out there.
statistically, there's probably somebody out there wearing a cowboy hat on a horse that maybe voted for Kamala. I can think of one or two that, well, anyway.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know. And she was like all caps yelling at me. And I just responded, that doesn't seem very tolerant of you.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which side is preaching unity here?
She didn't respond after that.
Of course not. So coming up for Dale, we've also got the NFR to look forward to.
Yeah, we got WRCA finals in Amarillo, which is the Ranch Rodeo finals. That's always fun. I try not to spend too much money there buying bits and whatnot. And then we've got the NFR after that.
Who do you like for bits right now, Dale?
Brandon Anthony.
Interesting.
Yes. Zane Heron headstalls. Zane Heron reins. Throw a Brandon Anthony bit on there. Maybe a Farkas buckle. That's what my latest setup was. So yeah, I don't know. I like Brandon as a person, and he makes good bits, and so I always stop by his booth and buy something at each. He did give me one, but I was using his stuff before he gave me one, so I guess you could say technically he paid me to say that, but he gave me one bit. It's not like
And you would have paid for it.
Yeah, and I planned on paying. I asked him for the bit, and I was going to Venmo him, and he was like, no, I'll just keep it. You give me shout-outs.
What kind of bits of his do you like?
The one I got from him is what I think they're calling the Milkman, and then I got a correction bit. No, a hinge bit. I do have a correction bit of his, though.
Do you ever get lost in bits and
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Don't think just because I knew what those were called just now that I know the purposes of each, okay? I got some really cowboy friends, and I'll be like, this horse you've seen ranch for the last week, which bit should I use? And Dusty says, I would use that right now on this horse.
A large part of how Dale picks bits is, I like how this one looks.
No, I put my hand up on the wall, and I look back at my friend, and I just like kind of look at Dusty, and like I move my hand, and as he looks like he's giving me a nod of approval, I'll be like, yeah, no, that's the one I was going to get anyway. That's how I pick those bits. Yeah.
Who do you like going into the NFR? Do you have any favorites? Anybody you're looking forward to see?
Have you seen the amount of money
this year
that these guys have? Have you noticed that, Donnie? Yes, it's crazy. I can remember back when Clint Cannon made it in the bareback riding, and it was insanity that he had over $200,000 won. Like a bareback rider, bull riding, that would happen. Because there's always more money added in the bull riding. But in the bareback riding, there's just not. He had the single season earning record. I want to say like $226,000 or something. He rode I think he rode every horse. He might have missed one mark out that year. Clint Cannon did. He didn't end up winning the world, but he had a phenomenal season. Regardless, I just remember it being super out of the ordinary that he had won. And that was maybe just 10 years ago. I bet it's longer than that. I bet it's 12 or 13 years ago. But he had more money won than any bareback rider had ever won going into the NFR. But now, 200,000, like it's like 150,000 is 15th place, 140 in every event, not just the bull riding.
Man,
isn't that crazy?
Man, for somebody just getting into, imagine if this is your first year of rodeo, or maybe you set the goal that you want to be a professional this year. How good does the foreseeable future look for rodeo? Amazing.
Yeah. Lyle Sankey said one time at a rodeo school, he really liked the way that this individual framed his question to Lyle. And he wanted to get into bull riding. And he said, what is the earning potential for a professional bull rider? And he admired that person's mindset in asking. He didn't say, what's the average income? Because that person, he wasn't expecting himself to be average. And that's super cool. What's Damien got one right now in the bronc riding? So number one in the bareback riding, Rocker Steiner has 233,000 won. We're just looking at roughies. Damian Brennan in the bronc riding has 280,000 won. 15th place in the bronc riding is 127. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And then bull riding is 244,000. TJ Gray has 244,000. 15th place has 120. That's a lot.
What's the all around? Who's winning the all around? Is it Shad Mayfield?
Yeah, 244,000. Talking about a lot of money. I sold my bulls, and 4 bulls brought $10,000 at the sale barn. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
They averaged $2,500 a piece. I actually had one that was less than 25. It was like 2,000, but then I had another bull that brought 3,600. One of those 4 brought 3,600. $10,000 for 4 bulls at the sale barn. These were killers, like killer packers.
Yeah,
that's a big year.
It's just
the only downside is now I'm going to have to replace them.
Right.
I hope the market comes down.
Yeah. It's easier to find bucking bulls than it is bucking horses, though.
Donnie doesn't think that the market's going to come down. He thinks. Yeah. Trump train, baby.
The market's it's cyclical. It'll come back around.
Yeah.
It always does. What you've had, okay, the podcast is definitely, we've been getting some heavy hitters here. What is a podcast guest that surprised you the most that we've had?
Well, I mean, Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
I saw that he watched my Instagram story every day. And so I just asked him. I was like, hey, would you be interested? And he's like, oh, yeah, because he's got horses and raises horses, so that's why he took an interest in me. The podcast is called Rodeo Time, and Terry Bradshaw is a football player, and now he's a football commentator. But he's got horses. He's interested in it, so we have some common ground. I liked football growing up, and so that's the podcast is who I'm interested in. But it always comes back to rodeo. For instance, our most recent podcast guest was Tilden Hooper, 9 times to the NFR in the bareback riding, and he is very well spoken, super funny guy. He and I are buddies. He's now been on 3 of my podcasts. So Tilden is that's me circling back what I'm interested in, what I think probably most of my demographic is interested in, or ranching. You know, Tom Morehouse, that one was a really good one. Jacobs and Sterling Crawley, those guys were great. Trevor Brazil, if you didn't listen to the Trevor podcast, you got to go back. He is the best for a reason, but like a lot of it is very simple. You know, he executes the fundamentals, but he has a unique mindset, and that was super cool to listen to. Rob O'Neill, guy who shot Osama bin Laden.
Eddie
Gallagher. And his story and how the Navy kind of turned on him. He did 8 deployments, and it's neat to hear him. The thing I took away from him the most, because I've heard other people talk about Eddie Gallagher and how like he's a real one. He almost made it through selection, which is to go to SEAL Team 6. And so like that would be the tier 1 division of the Navy, where Navy SEALs are tier 2. But so he almost made it through there, and I'm not sure what kept him from it, but regardless, like all these, even like SEAL Team 6 guys are like, Eddie's a real one. And he just kind of looks like he would be. And then you read his book. He doesn't talk a lot about himself maybe fighting, but telling the story, you can just hear the mean girls is what they're called and how they address him. Whatever. The point I'm trying to make is, asking him what the difference in guys that like to fight and guys that like to say they fought. Because in rodeo, we get a lot of that. There's guys that like to say they've ridden bulls, and then there's guys that like to ride bulls. And to be successful, I think you got to be in the latter. You got to like the fight. And I've been intrigued by maybe people in the military that are like that. And Eddie described those kind of guys that like the idea of fighting, but they don't actually like the fighting, as tourists. They'll do 1 or 2 deployments so they can talk about it, and then they get out. And that was wild to me, because we did have someone on. SD card's corrupted. We didn't get to shoot the episode, but we did have someone on talking. You would think this person was Chris Kyle, and turned out that person had only done 1 deployment. And in Eddie's words, it was kind of a tourist situation where they get out, they see the world, they get their deployment, and then they come back and they talk about it like they're the Dale Brisby of the military, which is fine. That's more deployments than I've ever done. I'm not trying to knock them as an individual. It's simply the attitude difference in an elite level and then someone who just likes to talk like they're an elite level, a Dale Brisby. And so but I respect the real ones, like the Tilden Hoopers. The Tilden Hooper would be like a Eddie Gallagher of rodeo. Stakes are much different. I'm not trying to compare the two as if like we're as good a guys and as extreme as they are. No. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I just have the utmost respect for someone who is passionate about their craft, and those guys are willing to die for it, And on some level, I guess rodeo guys kind of are, because that possibility is there, but none of us expect to die. Nobody expects that, and we don't want to. Like some of these fighters, like they're going into a situation expecting to die, for real. Like Eddie, Rob O'Neill, they took off to go do the Osama bin Laden raid, and they expected to die. Like we're not coming back from that. So we're not on their level, but it does make me respect that kind of. So I like those stories. Circling back to podcast guests, like I'm a guy that likes adrenaline and, action sports. And so I have on rodeo cowboys, ranching cowboys, military, like combat veterans. And then we'll circle back to a musician sometimes, the occasional preacher, Matt Chandler. That was for me and some of the guys that I witnessed to in my circle that I, wanted. That's what a lot of those questions were for. So 2.5 hour podcast with Matt Chandler. That was solid. He's a great preacher. So, what podcasts have been impactful for you?
Trevor Brazil one was, by
Ty Murray.
Ty Murray, that was
a good one.
That was probably that was wild. The way Ty Murray, as intense as he was, Ty Murray was just, and he was just this old school badass.
Yep, that's it.
Like he would said things, and it's like all the old rodeo guys you around.
Yep,
they talked exactly how Ty Murray talks.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It wasn't
Jim Sharp,
dude. All of these guys.
So simple. It was simple for him. That's a humble dude.
To be around all these world champions and all these elite level athletes, fighters, whatever.
I think also the podcast took another level whenever we got to go to Nashville and interview Kid Rock.
Yeah.
That put us on, that gave us some momentum, because there shortly after that we also got to jump on with Shane Smith and Co Wetzel, and those guys I know personally. I'm buddies with them. I've got their phone number. So they would have come on the podcast also. But, Kid Rock really kind of kicked off a big thing for us. And then we did have Mark Cuban. So we put Mark Cuban on. To be honest, at the time, Kamala had not announced. It was still Joe. Democrats were not endorsing Joe Biden. Nobody was talking about the election. And so we put Mark Cuban on, and about the time our podcast released, he comes out endorsing Kamala, which isn't a huge surprise. A lot of people, with him being a billionaire and a businessman, a lot of people might have expected him to be more conservative, but I think he kind of has beef with Trump, turns out, which I didn't know about. He also has beef with Elon, which I didn't know about. To be honest, I didn't realize where he stood politically. I knew he had endorsed Joe Biden, or I assumed he had. I actually don't know if he did. But he wasn't talking about politics. And so our podcast comes out, and this is a billionaire. He sat down with me. How cool is that? He's the one with a jet and a schedule. And he was like, yeah, come on over. And for an hour, we talked about the pharmaceutical industry and him disrupting that, which is good. We talked about Shark Tank, which I love. And we talked about Mavericks basketball, which I go to. And he gave me an hour of his time. Such a nice guy. Turns out we do have different political beliefs. Right. He did, vote for Kamala and was very outspoken about it.
Drastically different
political beliefs. But like I said, at the time, he wasn't that loud about it. He wasn't talking about it at all. So that one kind of caught me off guard, caught some of our listeners off guard. But it's also like, hey, man, I can have a different opinion with certain people.
What is the better lesson to learn from that? Is it
from which part?
So would it have been better if you had just not had Mark Cuban on? Or, of course, we're going to talk to him. Like, we don't vilify people based on their beliefs, right?
Yeah, no, definitely not. Here's the thing, like I said, at the time, nobody was talking about it.
Yeah.
That's just the whole, then later he was talking about it all the time, and you would put him closer to like advocate / I don't want to say activist.
It was close though.
But close to being and now all of a sudden it is a little polarized, because I'm not really outspoken about politics. I do bring it up around election time because I do think it matters. But people come to me for comedy.
Yeah.
People come to me for, let's talk about ranching. Let's talk about rodeo. Let's talk about horses. Let's tell some jokes. I'm your online rodeo clown of sorts, Snapchat. Let's do some Snapchatting. That's why people come to me. And because otherwise every podcast would need to be a sermon.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, more important than politics, what about your beliefs about eternity? Let's talk about that if we need to get that serious. And there would be no jokes. It's just podcast after podcast with guys like Matt Chandler, like, let's crack this Bible. But I like to respect where God put me, and that's in comedy, and that's in ranching and rodeo. And when I go the comedy route or just something I'm interested in, occasionally you might have some different beliefs of the other kind.
But hey, man, Mark Cuban, like you said, he was a gracious host, and we laughed. We didn't talk about politics at all.
Dude's a billionaire.
We laughed so hard in that podcast.
He had nothing to gain.
Yep.
By going on my podcast.
Right.
Nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
He didn't need my help at all.
And if you listen to that podcast through and through, there is no like that.
It's just a dude who's been there and done that, helping out a younger guy.
Right.
Trying to. But that's the thing. I like talking to people that I'm interested in.
Yep.
Most of the time, I'm not interested in people that vote like that. Typically, we probably disagree on a lot of things. Yeah. But yeah.
You can pick a fight with anybody, truly.
Yeah, that's true. You and I probably disagree on a few things.
I'm sure if we dig deep enough, we could find something a hill that either of us would die on.
And if you became an activist about any one of those things, I would probably not want to talk to you as much.
Right.
But you and I can disagree on some things, and it'd be okay. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I think that's a much better better place to be. There are plenty of podcasts where you can pick a fight and you stand on whatever hill you want to, but this is the Rodeo Time podcast. You know,
The main thing I think people probably saw the Shark Tank thing coming, but nobody knows how much I like basketball.
right? See here,
Nobody knows that.
We've reached one of the hills that we strongly disagree on.
I've gone to, I go to Mavericks basketball games. Like that's what I do. I go over to once a year. I go over to Dallas and I sit down. I try to get. I'm usually third or fourth row. Courtside seats are super expensive, but rather than going to multiple games, I'll pay a few $100 for like a third row game, and I'm good. Like you get to see those guys up close. But most of them I disagree with. Now, Jonathan Isaac, he has a book out. He's been on Daily Wire. He's a Christian in that space and votes red. And he and I are buddies, and I've talked to him. He'll probably be on the podcast one day. And so, like, he's someone I'll probably get closer to than, like me and Kyrie Irving. I did give him a high five once, but, like, we're, he and I are probably a lot different,
Right.
Politically. And that's okay. I just like how he dribbles basketball. I like how he shoots, and same thing with all them guys. Like
Probably going to talk about basketball.
I'm just entertained by it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's entertaining.
I-
Not as entertaining to me as rodeo.
No. I think it's good that you finally got to talk about that. I'm not sure you've been able to yet.
No, I haven't talked about that on any of the podcasts, but I'm sure some people have wondered, and some people turned me off, whatever. One guy got almost irate in comments, and I blocked him.
Right.
And then he got irate towards me, not even in comments, but also in messages.
Yeah.
And I blocked him on the next platform, and I think I had to go around. I blocked him on everything.
Yeah.
And the last thing he said was, "I'll be at your booth at the NFR."
Ah.
That ain't no joke. Don't think about that every morning in jiu-jitsu.
Maybe he forgot.
I doubt it. I'm not worried about it, but I think he wants to just talk to me. But
Which you will do, just like you did to Mark Cuban.
exactly. But I think one of the rocks after I blocked him the first time, he was just like, Dale's just against. Dale is for censorship because I blocked him.
Right.
And I was like, no. This is more like my house. And if you're going to be rude, there's a lot of haters that I don't block. I don't mind people that just don't like me. But if you're going to be irate in my house, I'm going to probably kick you out of my house at least. That's kind of how I see my social media. Like, hey, this is kind of my area. I've had a lot of people in my house that don't like me, and that's fine. Like, I'm not going to necessarily kick you out right away. You may not get re-invited to dinner. But if you start getting irate, all right, now you got to go. That's how I see social media. It's not necessarily – I am not Fox News or CNN. Like, I'm not an open platform where you can – no, I'm a .com, capitalist, free enterprise. I get to choose who I do business with, buddy. You're out of here.
This is the most we ever talk about politics.
This is. this
yeah.
is the most we've talked about politics.
But if there was ever a day two, I feel like today.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
just it's November 6th. It's the day after.
Yeah.
So maybe when should we release this podcast, by the way? Maybe. Anyway.
Soon.
Soon.
Yeah.
We'll do it soon.
Yep.
Anyhow. Anything else?
Man.
Go to rodeotime.com.
Yep. Win that Can-Am.
Win yourself a Can-Am. Buy a cap, t-shirt, hoodie on rodeotime.com and win yourself a Can-Am.
Like, subscribe, comment on our YouTube,
Yeah.
Instagram.
If you're listening to this, all the comments help on all the
Absolutely.
platforms. Comments help. Shares help. If you're a diehard Rodeo Time fan, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Comment. If you comment on every video, I'm going to see it, and you and I are going to get to know each other.
If you've been a fan for the last 4 years, we've made it through a pretty hard streak of still trying to laugh at things.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. No kidding.
you know what I mean? So I just it's all good in the hood.
All good in the hood. Love you guys. I'm Dale Brisby. I'm on to the next one. Pow, pow.